global governance scale.
Thank you. Ms. Crawford, why do you believe the issue of human rights is important to global governance?
Well, I would have to say that of all the issues on the global scale, human rights is the most far-reaching because it literally will affect everyone in this world. Human rights, they're just something that some people are denied, others are not, and we just need to make sure that everyone is living up to the common standard that we need to establish in global discourse. The UN refers to human rights as something that are inalienable and inviolable just by being a simple member of the human family. We, in the past, have looked at it through a Western view, but we need to go beyond this and include discourse on anything from what it really means to have a right to life to the simple basic needs of shelter and food.
All right, next, General Basant, could you please discuss what is the best approach to address issues of security and the state?
Well, here's the deal.
And possibly also discuss the actors.
Sure. Here's the problem. We need to find a space. We need to bring these states together. We need to bring actors together, whether it be NGOs, IGOs. We need to bring people together to discuss this issue. And we also have to have full participation of everybody that's involved with this issue. And I believe that the United Nations is the perfect place to discuss this issue. I've had the privilege to work as general and ability to see the operations of the UN on a day-to-day basis. I believe in the effectiveness of the United Nations Security Council. I can see the effect of this Security Council all the time, and I believe that the Security Council is the core of the global security system. And it's the primary legitimizer of actions initiated to deal with threats and aggression, just like nuclear, chemical, and biological warfare. The Security Council has primary responsibility for maintenance of international peace and security, and the authority to act on behalf of all members of the UN. Not just all members of the UN, but all of the world out there today. All of the states, all of the individuals that play a role in the international security that we know today. And if we can create this space, bring countries together, bring states together, bring people together, get their views on the table, then we have a chance of preventing this warfare from happening. We have a chance of having these groups, these states, sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty and ending this hostility that we see today.
But what about the role of non-state actors that fall outside the purview of the United Nations and the state?
Now that's a very important issue because states aren't the only ones that have the capabilities of using these weapons. We've seen in the past, we've seen different terrorist groups deploy these weapons. We've seen dictators deploy these weapons. The thing is, we have to bring people together. We have to bring people together to prevent these issues. Certainly, as the United Nations General, as a member of the UN, I want to prevent terrorist groups. We want to prevent terrorist groups from having these weapons. Now, if we can bring state actors and other strong actors in the international sphere together, we can prevent terrorist groups from ever having the ability to make these weapons and to deploy these weapons. So it is not just states that have the ability to use these weapons, but other groups out there. Now, if we bring them together, we can prevent groups like terrorist organizations from using these weapons.
Thank you. And Ms. McConaughey, what do you think is the best approach to address the issue of celebrity diplomacy, and what other actors should be involved in resolving it?
Well, when it comes to celebrity diplomacy, it needs to be looked at from two angles when things need to be changed. One, you have to look at the aid and where it's going and what we need to change about how that's being distributed and how it's being used. And we also need to look at the changing of celebrities' involvement and their position within the policy-making situations within like the UN and the G8 summit. I know Bono got to sit with all the leaders and the heads of politicians around the world and that kind of thing, but really, what does Bono need to do sitting with all the leaders and heads of politicians around the world? Why not a scholar or someone with knowledge of the area or someone from the area who can bring their own ideas and bring the problems of the people and to the leaders and have them discuss what's going on with it? What's also important is that with aid, further aid must be conditional on improved governance within the region that it's going to. Inappropriate governance has clearly been a major obstacle to development in places like Africa, and improvement of development performances requires new incentive structures and rewards success instead of failure.
What do you say to people who detract from your position and say that people like Bono and celebrities give light to issues that might otherwise go unaddressed?
Well, I think that's a very good point. I think that it's wonderful that he brings to light that there is something going on. However, the issues that are being presented by him are so one-dimensional. He never really gets the full concept. He doesn't have an actual knowledge of what's going on there. So when people think that they understand what's going on there, they understand one dimension of an incredibly complex issue that's going on. And what happens also is that Bono, I know that he is very involved with Sachs at the moment, and Sachs is supposedly the head of, knowledge on Africa at the moment, but really you cannot look at global governance and issues within our world from one viewpoint, because everybody has a personal viewpoint and every viewpoint is different. And if he is only providing one ideology, then they all need to be looked at.
All right, now Ms. Fitzpatrick, what do you believe is the best approach to deal with issues of sustainable development, and what actors should be engaged and involved in resolving the issue?
Well, I mean, obviously, trying to create sustainable development, because that's what global governance is trying to do at the moment, is creating sustainable development throughout the world. It's going to be a world forum, and everyone in the world needs to participate because it's a world issue. I believe it's going to be a bottom-up action. It's going to take individuals all the way to the UN and everyone in between to come together and start creating norms and rules and principles in which actors need to set in place within states, within communities, within regions, and throughout the world. Now, we have had the Stockholm Conference of 1972, the Brundtland Commission, the Earth Summit of 1992, and most recently in 2002, the World Summit. Now, the World Summit accomplished something that neither of the previous had. They accomplished the stating of the 3 pillars of sustainable development, unifying the economic, the environmental, and the social issues that surround and create the need for sustainable development. Now, right now, within the world, we are facing issues between the North and the South. Both still embrace the traditional views of national sovereignty and tension between the long-term vision of necessary for ecological sound planning and the short-term concern for economic growth. These two need to be looked at as long-term. We really need to see in the future that without sustainable development, there is no future. So we need to create it together through NGOs, regional organizations, the UN, creating principles and norms that everyone will follow.
What do you say to people who espouse the view that the third world should be given a chance to develop in the same way that the countries who have gone through the stages of development at the detriment of the environment should be that development countries should be allowed to do that? What do you think about that?
Well, what I would say to that is I really propose that we steer neoliberal economics more towards environmental concerns. At this moment, neoliberal economics believes that the best way to protect the environment is to alleviate poverty. And the way they do that is by privatization, foreign investment, and free trade. Well, that only strengthens the institutions that are governing the world economy, which is totally exploiting the developing countries. So if we steer neoliberal economics to support the environmental protection and the social institutions that exist within these countries, they will develop not only environmentally, but environmentally protective-wise, they will develop like the developed countries did.
All right, and now we move to Ms. Dundee.